Hey everybody, Mr. Movies 87 here, bringing you a new episode of Gaming Breakdown. Today we'll be talking about one of my all-time favorite systems and one of the most popular systems pretty much ever, the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. Released in 1991 in North America, this console was one of the best-selling 16-bit consoles and really one of the best-selling consoles of all time. Has a ridiculously good library. This picture here is only showing a small sample of that. There's many more games out there, both big name ones and lesser known ones that have done amazingly well on the system. This thing, top to bottom, is fucking fantastic. If you were growing up in the 90s, chances are you had one of these. Back then, there was a big console war between this and Sega's. What was it? The Sega Genesis, I believe it was back then, and the Mega Drive system. It's been a while. I just know that they were competing back then. But this lineup, I mean, you can see the games right here. I mean, need I say more about this system? Some of the greatest games ever made, and I mean that even to this day, were made on this system. Starting with the top game, top left corner there, Chrono Trigger, one of the best RPGs ever made, and probably the best Super Nintendo one. Sorry, Final Fantasy 3, but I think Chrono Trigger beats you just by a little bit. Not to say that Final Fantasy 3 is terrible, because it is far from it. That game is also phenomenal. But I think, in my personal taste, I will say that Chrono Trigger beats it out a little bit there. But this thing also, it wasn't just great for RPGs. This thing had everything for it. Adventure games, Mario games, racing games, sports games, like the shooters, all that fun stuff there. You name it, the Super Nintendo had it. And a small sample here. Yoshi's Island, Super Metroid, Star Fox, Super Mario Kart, Turtles in Time, Zombies Ate My Neighbors, Super Mario World. This picture does not have Super Mario All-Stars. I just found a quick picture online to use showing off some of the better games for the system. But yeah, Super Mario All-Stars definitely deserves its own mention here. Killer Instinct, Punch-Out, Bomberman, Aladdin, Earthworm Jim, Castlevania 4, F-Zero, which, by the way, great lesser-known game right there. A few other ones also that aren't here that I know from my childhood. Brainlord, ActRaiser, Lagoon, three of those right there are all very top-notch games. Lesser known in my opinion, but they're still very solid anyway. Um, Let me think what else I want to go over. Oh yes, my first experience with this, years and years ago we got this. I remember my brother and I saved up our allowance when we were kids. It was $5 a week. We saved up for weeks and weeks to buy A Link to the Past. Because back then it was I think $50 brand new, and yeah, we saved up for it for weeks and weeks on end. I remember also getting one of the Mega Man games in a small video game store in our hometown. I think now it's a carpet place. I think this was years ago, so I'm sure the place is probably different by now. Yeah, you got one of the Mega Man games there. I remember that in particular because when we were going home, I got my hand slammed by the car door as we were leaving. I kind of just akin that memory to that, oddly enough. But one thing I also wanted to mention with me doing console videos now, I really should have addressed this also in the gaming videos that I've done so far. But I want also, it's one thing for me to share my own experiences with all this, like my first game, my first time I played the system, and my favorite game, stuff like that. But I want to know what your favorite system is too, you guys. I want to try to make a discussion on this. So if you guys are able to, I would love to know what your favorite game was for the system, when you first bought one, and your first game for it as well, and just other personal experiences you have with it there. Because yeah, I love sharing my own stuff, but I want to make these videos more of a community-based thing, more discussion. I want to get people talking about these sort of things there. Because I know that this system meant a lot to a lot of people back then when we were growing up, and I know it still does today. People still play all these games all the time via emulator now. They didn't have one when they were kids. Experiencing old games that they missed out on, they didn't buy back then, or they couldn't buy back then, or what have you. And also just taking the base games and making them better with various ROM hacks and whatnot. Like Super Mario World's a perfect example of that. There's a million and one ROM hacks for it, and a lot of them are very top-notch quality there. Now, some games on here I actually have not played before, if you can believe that. Some of these, and even on the in the picture here, and just other ones in general. Like, I think you believe it, I have not played Super Metroid. I know that's probably gonna be a shock to some people there. Zombies Ate My Neighbors. I've only played that one a real little bit there. The Aladdin game, I'm a little familiar with that. I also remember the Lion King game. That was fun as hell back then, and also fairly challenging too. I think it wasn't that long or anything, but I do remember it being really, really hard. I also remember playing that at my cousin Rachel's house years and years ago. She had the Sega version of it, I believe. Of course, Final Fantasy 2. Need I say more about that? My personal favorite Final Fantasy game, well, 2/4, what have you. So, same thing, really. Earthbound, which I really do need to play, actually. Years back, well, this is not years when I was a kid, years, just like a handful of years ago. I did a late night stream of that for a little while, my first time playing through that. Didn't get very far, as I'd only streamed for like maybe an hour or so. So that's something I should definitely do at some point. Maybe even a blind project for it, a blind LP or something like that. And of course, the Punch Out there, Killer Instinct was actually that was my first fighting game actually. Believe it or not, we got this when we were just like, geez, when I was maybe 10 years old, probably before that even actually. Um, and yeah, Super Mario All Stars, of course, one of the best compilation packs ever. That had Mario 1, 2, and 3, and Lost Levels. Lost Levels was supposed to be Super Mario Bros. 2, but the Mario 2 that we got was originally called Doki Doki Panic. So they added some Mario elements to it, and boom, Mario 2. So there you go. Also, special shout out to Turtles in Time, my personal favorite and pretty much the best Turtles game out there, in my opinion. I also love the 360 arcade remake of it. My brother and I played through that co-op a while ago. Game was both kind of a headache though, because the colors were just so bright and flashy and all that stuff. It's still very, very fun, but I just prefer the original Super Nintendo version there. Yeah, Super Mario Kart. I mean, one of the best racing games ever. The first entry into that series as well. This whole video just reeks of nostalgia. And yeah, screw the people who mentioned like, oh, nostalgia goggles, blah blah blah. These games meant a lot to a lot of people back then. They still do today, so I don't want to hear it. I mean, what else is there to say about the system that hasn't already been said? I mean, there's so many great games. I mean, one of the best overall lineups of games ever from top to bottom. It covers every genre. I mean, so many great memories about this thing. Hell, I should hook up mine right now if I have it here. I'm not sure if I do, actually. It might be packed up in the boxes we have here, or it might still be back home in Pennsylvania. I'm not sure. But anyway, well, if not, I can just do an emulator for it there. Oh, another cool story too. Lesser known game, Thunder Spirits. It's a arcade style shooter. It was apparently also known as Thunder Force 3, and there's also Thunder Force 4, I believe they're called. I never knew that before. Just a fun little tidbit there. Oddly enough, when we bought that game, we bought it from an airport. I guess one of the gift shops there sold video games or something. This was in the Pittsburgh airport, I believe. And this would have been like 15 years ago, probably. I don't remember too much about the actual experience of buying it. I just remember that we bought it in an airport, of all things. Like, it's just the weirdest place to buy a video game, but there you go. It was also super cool when we were growing up, like 2 minutes away from our house. Like, we go down the street pretty much, or down the, oh, from where we lived, just make a quick right and then go down the hill on Main Street. That was the main street that cut through our town. And just like a couple minutes drive, there was a cool little video store right there. It was a Joe's Video Store. We would go there like all the time. We were able to rent games for a week at a time. Then that was our first experience with many, many games back then. And after a while too, we were eventually able to buy some of them, I think. I think just because we were there so freaking often. But that was our first taste of games like Final Fantasy 2 and so on and so forth. Speaking of which as well, Final Fantasy 2, um, there was a grocery store that also had a video game store in it, I believe, near my grandparents' house. This was in Greensburg, also years ago, that had Final Fantasy 2 in it. So we were never able to actually buy a copy of that game just because we could only rent it, of course. We just could never find it anywhere else. It was tricky to rent from there because we'd only visit our grandparents like every so often. And of course, we wouldn't want to make a trip there to like, it's a half an hour trip to and from our place back then. But yeah, it'd be tricky to make a trip half an hour just for that to rent the game for a week and have to go back out just to return it and all that. So yeah, unfortunately, we were never really able to get all that far in it. I think all the farther we got was to, I think, Mount Ordeals and maybe a little past that. Even that, actually. So there's that. The Donkey Kong Country, by the way, I don't think they really even mentioned that. Those games can be hard to sell. Some of those levels are nuts. Like the ever fun minecart levels. Those are always super fun, and by super fun I mean can be super annoying. I haven't played any of those in a while, actually. I probably should again. I've only beaten the first one, believe it or not. I haven't really done much with two or three or whatever else there are. I would love to see a new one of those for the 3DS and Wii U. Although they did make one of those not too long ago. What was it, Tropical Freeze or whatever? I think that was for the Wii U. I'm not sure if it's on the 3DS or anything. I could be wrong. I'm not sure. What else is on this list here anyway? Um, what's that game on the bottom left there? It's a little hard for me to see on the OBS window here. Um, I can't quite tell by the cover there. It might be an RPG. I glanced over the picture in like a bigger size before I started recording just to see what each game was. But I mean, you can see it as is. Although in the video, I'm sure you'll be able to see afterwards there. I pretty much went over every game, at least on this list anyway. Oh yeah, Secret of Man. I didn't go over that. Um, I have not really played much of that one. I do have a hard copy of it, thankfully. And I also have Final Fantasy Adventure, which is sort of the same thing on the Game Boy, and also the remake for on the Game Boy Advance, Sword of Mana, I believe it was. That's a fun one right there. What else is there? Cedar of Evermore, which never came to the States, I don't think. Haven't played that one before. I've heard it's pretty good. Wasn't there another Mana game that came out for the Super Nintendo? There's Cedar of Mana, Cedar of Evermore. I thought there was another one. I can't think of it for right now. Oh well. Oh no, Castlevania 4, and then I guess the remake for Super Castlevania 4 on the PS1, which, believe it or not, I've also not really played before. I played it, well, I will say, I played it a real little bit. Not too long ago, a couple of years back, I tried it out. It's highly renowned for the Castlevania series, combining platform elements and also RPG elements. So that should be right up my alley, so I'll have to play that sometime. Hell, maybe a blind LP of that would work. A lot of potential here. I mean, a lot of these games here I want to LP anyway. I mean, on my old channel, I did Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy 2, Super Mario RPG, Link to the Past, which I never did finish though, unfortunately, but whatever. No big deal there. So that's pretty much it there, I think. Yeah, I've plenty more experiences with this system. One of my all-time favorite systems, really. This and the PS1 are pretty much neck and neck for my top two systems there. But yeah, like I was saying before, guys, I want to hear from you guys too. What's your favorite system? Well, not system. What's your favorite game was back then when you first got the system? Your favorite game for, and just other personal memories you have. And I want to try to just make some more discussion on this. So hopefully this will be the kickstart to that. And with that, guys, it's been Mr. Movies 87 signing off. Hope you enjoyed the video. Have a great day, and thanks for watching.